The first is that change is deeply, deeply personal. And secondly, that perception is reality.
Really good, very excited about your upcoming webinar, The Brain, So What? Why that topic, Bronny?
The brain, so what, is kind of like, well, if we had gone back a few years ago, people would have thought, oh, okay, this sounds a little bit, excuse the expression, but wanky. And it's all about really understanding how important our brains are for us on a day-to-day basis.
So conversations about change, and I really love that link. So you're working with organisations at a fairly high level these days.
Yes, it's quite interesting because I think in terms of conversations, the work that we often do in change helps people lift their heads about the work that they're doing. And I think there's so much pressure on people at the moment about getting through the day-to-day, and they need to do things more quickly, quite often with less resources. They're quite often being asked to make decisions on the run, that we're kind of losing the importance and the understanding that through conversation we grow a profound understanding of the other person involved in a business exchange, whether it's an activity or a task that we're asking them to undertake. So through conversation, I think the important balance that we bring back to the table is that there's a person at the end of each and every action that we are either asking of someone or asking to be with someone in that context. I don't know if that's come across very clearly, but it's really about how do we balance out the conversation so that we're not just relying on a squeaky wheel. We're not just hearing, oh, the data is telling us this. It's actually about how are we balancing out the conversations through conversations with people more broadly across an organisation and around a table. And that helps us to, I think, contribute to the context that people individually make on a deeply personal level to strategic outcomes. In terms of what will people be focusing on in this webinar, I'm really, really hoping that people are focusing on two fundamental things about change, particularly in the organisational setting today. The first is that change is deeply, deeply personal. And secondly, that perception is reality. If we can focus on these two things, that actually profoundly, positively impacts how we approach change in the organisational setting. And what people will walk out with, I hope, is maybe a shifted passion about caring about change a little more deeply and how it happens. But there are some really simple models that you can use to really affect change that helps people be in the conversation, not outside the room or the victim of change, but actually are becoming a partner through the change that we're trying to effect.